Hello, Simmers, and welcome to FlyTampa's Copenhagen Airport, a scenery that does not only cover the airport but also the immediate surroundings, which is basically the city of Copenhagen. You can see the bridge between Copenhagen and the Swedish city of Malmö in the distance, known, of course, from the television series, a Scandinavian detective series called The Bridge or Bron. Um, If you haven't watched that one, go and watch it. It's fantastic. It's a very, very good series with excellent actors, but that's not what we're here for. Like I said, Flight Tampa's Copenhagen, and not only the airport, but also the immediate city surroundings are modeled, as you can see when I move around with my view like this. Copenhagen, of course, the capital of Denmark, with Copenhagen Airport being, I think, well, the biggest, and I think also think the busiest airport in the country. Not really sure, but sounds logical to me that the capital airport is the biggest and the busiest. Anyway, as you can see, the scenery of the surroundings is very, very nicely modeled. If you have your approach like this, it's not bad. I really like this. So Fly Tampa, they did their first Northern European airport after a lot of Greek airports for X-Plane. I really, really hope they will also make the effort to make Amsterdam, because if we can have Amsterdam in this quality, then I'm a very, very happy simmer. But anyway, like I said, well, if you take a look at the buildings, they went through great lengths to recreate this airport. It is created with all the technologies available for X-Plane 11, so there's a lot of use of PBR materials, well, anything. Um, it might look a bit different on your system because I am also using X-Vision, which is a utility that enhances the shaders in X-Plane and thus changing the colors and the way you see them in the sim. And I use the Impressive for Lua preset in Xvision. And the clouds, that's Active Sky XP, high-res clouds combined with the X-Plane default clouds. And then the Xvision over that, I think makes for quite a nice image. And what we will do today is take a closer look at this airport. Well, we have now done that, so as you can see, the terminal buildings are also done to a very, very high standard. I think you can actually walk inside the terminal. Yep, it's modeled. Personally, I don't think that is very necessary. I think the outside is the most important. I'm not walking around in terminals, but some people like to, and well, at least it is modeled. And what we will do is we'll take the RotateSim MD-80 in this beautiful old livery of Scandinavian Airlines and fly it to Vienna, where the recently released Gaya simulations Vienna is installed. So we also have a very nice airport add-on down there that we will take a closer look at upon arrival. For now, we are parked at gate Charlie 30 and we will prepare ourselves for departure and takeoff. Then I'll skip the video after takeoff until we are well into the approach into Vienna for the landing there, taxi in, and take a closer look at the airport down there. So, I already set the weight and balance. The alignment is on its way, so that will be done shortly, I presume. So let's head over to the flight management system and start entering our route and some other information. Of course, the destination airport, Vienna Lima Oscar Whiskey Whiskey. Our flight number is Scandinavian Airlines 695, and we expect to take off from runway 22 right. We can now look at the flight plan immediately. So take off in a southwesterly direction, make a left turn a bit further to the east, then take an airway across the eastern part of Germany, across the Czech Republic, and then into Vienna in Austria. So first we'll fly to Belox and then a direct to Salo. So let's enter those two immediately. Belox in there, and then we proceed to Salo with direct 2, and then we have an airway. I thought it was Mike 40. No. Oh, Mike 44. And we'll fly Mike 44 until we reach Kogim, of Kogim, or whatever you like to call it. And from Kogim we will fly a long airway all the way to the northern point of the Czech Republic, which is the Mike 7252 HDO. So Mike 725 to Hotel Delta Oscar. Then we fly a direct to Lanux, which will be the entry point for our star into Austria. A star is a standard arrival route. So let's go to the departure arrival page. 22 right, Belox for Charlie for the departure, into the route that is set. Back to the departure arrival page for the arrival in Innsbruck. We will fly the Lanux 6 Whiskey arrival for ILS runway 11. We will not use any transition, so let's go to the route page. That is set. Let's go to the legs page to fix some discontinuity issues, which are here. So Whiskey Whiskey 651, and then in this line that will set it. Hit the next page to see that the final page doesn't have discontinuities. Activate and then execute, and that's the flight plan now loaded. Like I said, I already set the weight and balance information, so in the RotateSim you can just press the left line selector keys for the gross weight, zero fuel weight, etc. Now the zero fuel weight is 52,300 kilos, and we also have to dial that in here. So press this one, and then 52,300, was that correct? Yep, that is correct. Giving us a gross weight of 60,700, which corresponds with the information in the flight management system. Let's say that we have 2 tons of reserves needed to reach our alternate airport of Linz, and we'll use a cost index of 050. The cruise altitude will be flight level 330, so just enter 33,000 in here. It will immediately change to flight level 330. Then if we take a look at the flight plan and look at the top of climb, which is here, you can see that we have a wind at top of climb of 272,050 knots and an ISA deviation of -2. So 272,050 and -2 on the ISA deviation. If we take a quick look at the standard instrument departure or SID chart, we can see that the transition altitude in Copenhagen is 5,000 feet. So we'll change the transition altitude to 5,000. Execute this page and go on to the takeoff. The outside air temperature at this moment in time is 12 degrees Celsius. So that is set correctly. And the center of gravity is 9. So what we can do already is set the trim computer center of gravity, that is this one. So move the left side of this wheel until it says 9. So you just derive whatever figure is given here on the takeoff ref page on the flight management computer. And we will use flaps 15 for takeoff. So that will give us a trim setting required of 8. So we have to set trim to 8 in a minute. And now we also have to do something, because I can select the right line selector keys here and I will get V speeds, but those are the V speeds that apply to the current flap setting, which is up. And we will take off with flaps 15, so the speeds will be lower. So what you need to do is go to the handbook, the pilot handbook, which comes with the add-on. Go to page number 3, and there you have this table. Now we will use the weight of 61 tons. 60,700 is closer to 61 than it is to 60. Although because of taxing we might lose a little bit, but well, let's just go for this one. So we'll use V1 133, V rotate 138, and V2 of 146. So let's dial those in. So 133, and the other one was 138, and then a V2 of 146. Now the runway 22 right is actually quite long, so we can derate our takeoff. So I can set the assumed temperature, and I will set that to well, 45 degrees by turning this wheel. So that is now set. Let's execute this one, and the takeoff reference page is now complete. So we have set the A to B flight, so the lateral navigation is set. We have dialed in all the performance data. The takeoff reference is good, so that's the flight management system for now. What I will do is, oh, the IRS is aligned, by the way. We have to set runway heading, which is 217 in runway 22 right. Initially, and if you take a look at the SIT chart and we read the description of our SIT, climb on extended runway centerline to 2.0 DME Kastrup, which is the VOR, and we have an initial climb to 7,000 flight level 070. So the Kastrup VOR is 112.5, and we can climb to 7,000. So let's start by dialing this nav1 radio to 112.5. and set the altitude window to 7,000. And right now we are 2.4 miles away from Kastrup. And then we have to listen to the ATIS. Now, I don't know how loud this is, but this can be quite loud, so prepare to cover your ear or remove your headphones right now.
Echo Kilo Charlie Hotel Airport Information Victor 1050 Zulu Weather Wind 266 at 21 Visibility 10,000 Sky Condition Ceiling 3,400 Overcast Temperature 12 Dew Point 4 QNH 1013 Advice on initial contact. You have information Victor.
Information Victor is on board, and the QNH 1013 is already set and cross-checked on the other gauges. We can then set the speed window to the V2 speed, which is 146. And with this preparation complete, let's run the first flight of the day checklist. So go to the overhead panel, and first thing on the list is the cockpit voice recorder, so we'll test that. That's tested and checked. Then we go to the electric power panel. External power is on the buses, that's set. Galley power can be switched on. Fuel tank, pumps and crossfeeds, they are off right now, which is correct. The emergency lights can be armed. Ice protection panel, which is down here, we have to verify that this works, so move this switch all the way around. You should have readings on all positions except for the red probe. Then it will have to go back to 0, so let's see if it does that. And that is correct, so let's set that to off right now. But it is checked. No, let's just we have to set the windshield heating on, anti-ice and anti-fog, that's good. With 12 degrees we don't need engine or wing anti-ice just yet. So let's go back up and go to the ground proximity warning. We have to test and check that.
Wide slope. Pull up. Terrain. Terrain. Pull up. Sink rate.
Okay, so that is set correctly. Anti-skid is checked armed. Stall and airspeed warnings. We have two systems. System 1 for the stall is checked, and system 1 and 2 for the speed. No. Is also checked. The yaw damper can be switched on. Air conditioning and pressurization. Everything is auto, and 0, the supply ducts are off, just as we like it in this stage of the flight. Pressurization, we can set the landing altitude in Vienna, which is 600 feet if I'm not mistaken. Let's check that. Yeah, 600 feet, so we can already dial that one in here. No. There we are. And the landing barrow, well, we have to listen to an ADIS in our approach, and then we have to set that one. But the altitude, that is set correctly anyway, so we cannot forget that anymore. It will not change unless there's an earthquake. Annunciator and digital lights. Well, what you can do to check that is hover your mouse over this button, press it with the left mouse button and hold that one, and then also press the right hand side mouse button. And then you can pan your view and check whether all the lights throughout the flight deck are working as they should be, and they do. So that is checked. Then we have to set our flight guidance. Let's set the flight directors on, and I want to be in nav mode. And well, we also have VNAV, but you can also only switch that unless you set this one in managed mode. But when we take off, I will set it to TO flex. I can do that right now. And after takeoff, I will switch to managed, and then we can engage VNAV. So that's different than what you might be used to if you used to fly 737s, for instance. The fire control panel is down here. Well, there are things modeled to check, but you have to press 2 buttons at the same time. I cannot do that with my mouse. So you have to assign keys on your keyboard. I haven't done that, so I cannot check it right now. The altimeters 1013 were set and cross-checked on all instruments. The engine instruments are checked and have normal readings for this stage of the flight. The gear lever is in the down position and we have 3 lights, so that's checked. The hydraulic system, we have to move over to the first officer seat to reach the control panel. In here you can see the readings. Right now they are 0. We can check whether they are functioning. It is working, and when it's switched on it's set to 3000 psi, so that's normal. So that's checked. The radar is off, which it should, or else we will fry the ground crew. Transponder TCAS, that is down here. Now you can manipulate it with this button, which consists of a big lower and a small upper button. With the lower button you can select which digit you wish to alter. The white arrow will indicate which one you have selected, and then with the smaller button on top you can actually change the digit. I'll leave it to this, that's fine, but just set it to standby modes. Stabilizer, well, we already set the trim with the trim computer, and we saw that we needed 8. It's not set to 8, so we will have to move the trim. And if you move the trim for a longer period of time, you will hear a warning sound. That's it. And if it continues to move, you will get an audible warning saying stabilizer motion. Stabilizer motion. There it is. So trim is set to 8, which it should be according to the computer. Spoilers are retracted. The rudder control lever, that's this yellow handle right here, is set to power, which is correct. The fuel levers are both in the off position. Then we have to move back to the overheads. Cabin altitude controller are in the auto 1 position, which is checked. Flaps and slats, the levers are up, and that's also indicated on the display, so they match, that's checked. Communications panel, that is already set. The trim tabs, 0. Auto brake selector is off. And the parking brake pressure temperatures. Well, the parking brake is set and checked. So that's the first flight of the day checklist completed, and let's start the APU now, because I want to proceed with the engine start so that we can finally taxi out and leave this airport. So we'll just have to wait for the APU to start. As soon as it started, this blue light will illuminate. Then we can set the APU to the buses, disconnect the external power, and then we can move over to the procedure of starting the engines. What I can do in the meanwhile is pre-plan the pushback, which is
Ground to cockpit,
perfect.
plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you're ready.
Oh, all the doors are still closed. Well, if you want to open the doors in the flight management computer, you can go to menu, then aircraft management, and then you can, let's say, open the cargo doors as well. By the way, I really love this livery. When I was a young boy, my father would take me to Schiphol Airport every now and then to watch airplanes. And that's like late 80s, early 90s, and I always liked this one. I don't know why, but it looks very good on this this airframe. But anyway, we're not here for my personal history. We're here to do a flight. Let's see. Well, let's close the cargo doors and get rid of some of the ground equipment already. Let's say that all the baggage and freight is in the belly of the airplane. The APU is started, so let's switch that one onto the buses and set the external power of the buses. We can also set the APU air to on. That's basically the bleed air. And what we can do now is disconnect the GPU, close the door, which is now closed, and start running or get rid of all the other ground crew. And now we can start with the before start checklist. So let's set the fuel pumps in the on position. Pitot heat will set to the captain side. The ignition also for the captain side for this flight. Start pump can be switched on. The no smoking and seatbelt signs are on. Let's go to the first officer station and set the hydraulics both to on and high. So that's already there. And let's remove the let's first call in the pushback duck. Oh, I already pre-planned
Ground
it.
to cockpit, plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you're ready. Ground to cockpit, tow is driving up.
Let's see if that's enough to release. No, we have to move SAM plugin to remove the jetway. And there it goes. So the jetway is removed. Let's set the anti-collision light on. And we have to switch off the galley power. And the AC packs, they are off. And then we have to open the pneumatic crossfeed valves. Those two white handles, and that's the before start checklist completed.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
And we just have to wait a little bit until we are being pushed. As soon as the pushback starts, we can start the engines. So Scandinavian 695 is fully ready, gate Charlie 30. Request clearance for push and start. Scandinavian 695 is cleared, push and start.
So connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
Brakes released, clear the push.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Roger, first starting number 2, then number 1. Starting 2. You can see N2 starting to rise already. And when this one reaches 20, we'll open the fuel flow, just like your average Boeing airplane. Procedure is actually the same. So 20, open the fuel flow. Exhaust gas temperature is rising rapidly, and 1 is spooling up. And it all stays. It's now online. The generator for number 2 is now on the bus. So let's. It's stable. So let's switch off the starter and start number 1. And 20, so fuel flow open.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Let's make sure that the needles stay in the green. Exhaust gas temperature is rising rapidly, so is the N1. And number 1 engine also has the generator on the bus right now. It is stable, so starter can be switched off. And we can now set the parking brake. So we have 2 good engine starts. You are clear to disconnect the parking brake sets.
Disconnecting cow. Stand by.
So now we just have to wait for him to get rid of his stuff. We can do a flight control check. Full left, full right, neutral, down, up, neutral, and the rudder, full left, full right, neutral. So we have freedom of movement on the controls. We can now set the APU off the buses. We can switch off the APU air, APU master, and switch on the packs. So pressurization should now be working. So after start checklist, the electric system.
Is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Thanks for your help. See you next time. Bye bye. So the electric system, that is set. The galley power can be switched on, by the way. Galley power and ignition on and off. Engine anti-ice and fuel heat. Well, engine anti-ice is not required. Let's set the fuel heat on. PEX and air conditioning shut off switch, they are all in the auto position. So that's good. And the hydraulics, let's verify that they are still in the on and high position, which they are. Clear signal is received. After start checklist is completed. So let's perform the taxi checklist. Flaps and sleds. The flaps can be set to 15. That's 3 clicks. I can set the auto brakes to RTO and arm them. Flight controls are checked. Takeoff data and bugs, they are set. Takeoff warning. We can release the brake and engage a bit of power, and if there's anything wrong we should hear an audible warning. That's not there. So takeoff warning is checked. Flight guidance. D-rate temperature 45, climb clearance 7000, nav track, altitude hold. And we will switch that to VNAV after takeoff. And the takeoff briefing is, well, basically not yet completed, so let's do that. So we'll have the Balo for Charlie departure for runway 22 right. We will taxi out of the apron onto taxiway Foxtrot, cross runway 12 to taxiway Alpha, then Alpha 1 line up and wait for runway 22 right. On takeoff, I will be flying the plane. I want the first officer to monitor the speed. I want you to call 80 knots, V1 rotate and V2. In case of an emergency below V1 we will stop for every warning, bring the airplane to a complete stop, and we'll just assess the situation and discuss whether a evacuation is necessary or not. In case of a fire warning we will evacuate always immediately. In case of an emergency above V1 I will climb to 7000 feet. We assess the situation, contact ATC, and we see what we'll do from there. In case of an aborted takeoff, I will call abort. I will close the thrust levers, apply full brakes, and if the speed is really high we will also apply thrust reverse if there is no engine fires. Keep an eye out for other traffic. Any questions? No questions. That's the briefing completed, and that's the taxi checklist completed. Oh, nose gear light to dim. That's the taxi light, by the way. So here we make a right turn onto taxiway Foxtrot. I would really like to have a ground speed gauge in this airplane. That would make life a lot more easy. Let's set this switch to position and strobe, but the strobe lights will only be switched on as soon as the landing gear leaves the ground. On the ground you will not see flashing strobe lights on this airplane. So let's cross runway 12. Let's say we're clear to do that.
Approaching 12.
Check. Follow the second yellow line here for taxiway Alpha. Here we are. So we have crossed the runway. Transponder is set to TARA. Okay, let's run the before takeoff checklist. APU air is off and the pneumatic crossfeeds can be off as well. Ignition has to be set to overdrive. Annunciator panel and temperature brake and brake temperatures, well, they are checked. The annunciator panel doesn't have any strange messages for this configuration, so that's okay. And TCAS verified. Oh, TARA. So that's the before takeoff checklist completed. You have to take the second one to the left here, and that will be the Alpha 1 for runway 22 right. So let's say that we are clear to line up and wait runway 22 right. Let's switch on the floodlights.
Approaching 22 right.
22 right is verified and correct.
On runway 22 right.
Check. And let's close the power levers. Here we are. And bring the airplane to a complete stop. Now another very important difference with the Boeing or Airbus airplane is that you only switch on the auto throttle well into the takeoff run. First you have to set your thrust to 1.4 EPR, roughly 80% and 2. And once it's stabilized at those settings, then you can switch the auto throttle on, because as soon as you switch it on, it will immediately set the thrust levers to the takeoff power position. So let's say that we are cleared for takeoff. Lights are on. Brakes released, forward pressure on the yoke. Let's increase power. Okay, let's set the chronometer to run. There we go, and auto throttle engaged. Takeoff. Oh, yeah, that is set correctly. 80 knots. Cross-checked. Release forward pressure on the yoke. V1. Rotate. Positive rate. Gear up. Let's lower the nose slightly to give ourselves some forward speed. Slightly turning to the left. Oh, slightly. Okay, let's set flaps 11. Nose gear light can be switched off. The gear is up and the lights are off. Flaps 1. Flaps up. Autopilot engaged, managed, and VNAV. So thrust, FMS, EPR, nav, track, VNAV, climb for the flight guidance is set. Flaps are up, gear is up. Let's run the after takeoff checklist. Gear is up, lights out. Flaps and sleds up, lights out and stowed. Ignition can be switched to the off position. Fuel feed, well, the fuel pumps for the center tanks, they can be switched off because there is no fuel in them anyway in the center tanks. Hydraulics, they can be set to off and low. And the spoilers can be disarmed. Oh, hey, that was... I thought I armed them. Well, anyway, auto brake system is disarmed and off. And that's the after takeoff checklist completed. 7,000 feet coming up. Let's say that we're clear to climb flight level 330. 330 is also set in the flight guidance system right now. And a left-hand turn is coming up. That will bring us to Echo Hotel 381. Oh, look at this airplane. I really love this MD-80. Its design, it's just such a... I don't know. I always liked this airplane design, and I think it's quite a shame that Delta has now decided to retire them as well. I mean, it's a logical decision. They're very old, but boy, they are so nice. I really like this. And it's nice that we can have the memory of these planes live on in the simulation world. By the way, I'm very anxious to RotateSim MD-80 project. The latest status update showed some really impressive screenshots, so I hope it will be the same level and maybe a bit more study level than this one, although this is a study level sim, let there be no discussion about that. But I really hope that it will have the dual FMC operation, etc. So we have crossed 10,000 feet, so the lights off and the seatbelt signs auto. And let's dial up the heading. There we are. Okay, well, the flight will continue to Vienna Airport in Austria. I'll skip the video here and I'll see you guys back when I'm well into the approach for Vienna. We'll take a look at the landing procedure, we'll land the airplane, and after landing we'll take a closer look at the Gaya simulations Vienna scenery. So see you in a bit. So welcome back in these skies over Austria. We are well into our approach into Vienna. For the Austria region I'm using Ortho 4XP photo scenery tiles combined with X-Europe 2. And then of course the Gaya simulations scenery for the airport. We are about to pass 10,000 feet, so it's time to switch on the landing lights. For your information, we are en route for an ILS approach, runway 16. The wind is 155 at roughly 6 knots. QNH 1023 or 3021, so I set the baro reference for the landing airport as well. The ILS course and frequency are dialed in, and on the NAV2 radio we have the Wagram VOR. Excuse me, the Fichament VOR, which is basically the distance to the airport on a 110.4. Speed is still a little bit high, so let's just add in a little bit of drag to slow us down further to 240 knots over Nerdu, where we want to be at 6,000 feet, and then we have to continue down to 5,000 feet over at Whiskey Whiskey 671 for an ILS runway 16. As you can see on the chart, 5,000 feet is the altitude that we have to fly on to capture the glide slope. It's going to be an ILS approach, so it's 200 feet minimums. Those I have to dial in, so let's do that right now. There we are, 200 feet minimums is set. If you take a look in the flight management system, we expect a wind correction of 6 knots, flaps 40, 136 knots. That will be our landing configuration. The seatbelt signs are on, and basically we can now run the in-range checklist. So let's go to the first officer station for the hydraulics. They have to be on and high, so these switches to on, and this one to high, so that is checked. Altimeters 1023 is set and cross-checked on all gauges. The landing data bugs TRP are set, and the TRP for go around, well, we'll just leave that until we are on final approach. I leave it at managed right now because we're still in our VNF descent. Seatbelt switch is on. Pressurization and anti-ice. The pressurization is normal, anti-ice is not required, and the approach briefing, well, I just completed that one, so that is checked. And we can also proceed with the approach checklist. The altimeter and bugs are set, the radio and course are identified, and we are inbound. VOR, ADF, marker switches are set, so that is the approach checklist completed. And here we now are, speed brakes off. For the auto brakes, I'll use the medium setting, so we can vacate the runway as quickly as we can. But you can only arm it once the gear is down, but at least we have the correct setting. That's one thing. Let's reduce the range on this display. Slow descent to 5,000 feet. Let me just check in the legs page. The speeds that are dialed in, 220 whiskey, 209 and 170. That seems good right now. Although I want to be at 136 knots close to the runway, so I'll alter that one. 136 at 00674. 647, correction. There we are. Okay. It is 1085. Yes, it is. So as soon as we are in range, we should have the ILS identified. I think we're getting close to the point where that is possible. But we're not there yet, so let's leave it on the map display for now. So what we'll do is we'll come in from the north. The city of Vienna is located to the west of the airport. So we'll turn in like this, and I think that's Vienna over there. There's the city. Lovely city. I was there, I think, well, I guess it's 10 years ago already. It seems like yesterday. But a lovely city to visit, lots of beautiful buildings, museums. It's not too big, so most of the sites are at walking distance from each other. And of course you can always go in one of those horse carriages around the city. If the COVID-19 stuff is over, highly recommended to do a city trip to Vienna. It's a lovely city for like a 2 or 3 day trip. And if you go there, don't forget to go to the Sacher Hotel for the Sachertorte, which is basically chocolate cake, but it is delicious. And personally, I am capable of going back to Vienna only to get a slice of that cake. It was that nice. But that's just me, and I like cake a lot. So anyway, well, we just have to wait until we are established on the ILS, and then I will continue with the landing checklist. What we can do in the meanwhile is set the ignition already to the overdrive position. It has to be there anyway. So cabin crew, take your seats for landing. And we have the ILS, so we can set ILS. Localizer is alive. And here we are leveling off 5,000 feet, so let's set the heading 160, that's the missed approach course. Because missed approach, climb ahead, 10 DME out, and then a left-hand turn back to the VOR at 5,000 feet. So missed approach heading 160, altitude 5,000 feet is set. We are established on the localizer. Glide slope is alive. And captured. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to override the flight management system and set the speed now to 180. So it's time to slow down. 12 miles out. Let's add in a little bit of speed brake. Don't really like the rate of deceleration right now. And the speed, since it is quite high, the distance to the runway gets shorter quite fast. So 10 miles out. Speed 240. .230. .220. Set flaps 1. We need drag to slow down further and faster. 210. 6.5 miles. Gear down. That's a lot of drag. And let's reduce the speed further to 160. Flaps 11, 200 knots. Flaps 15. Speed brakes armed. The auto brakes armed as well. And let's set the speed to 136. Flaps 28. .150. Flaps 40. Okay, so landing checklist. Gear is down, lock 3 green. Ignition is overdrive. Spoilers are 40 set. Auto brake system medium armed. Flaps and sleds 40 land. Annunciator panel is checked. Cabin PA is done. Landing checklist completed. And now it is time to raise our point of view a little bit. And disengage the autopilot and the auto throttle. Let's see if we can land this thing manually.
500.
Slightly low, slightly to the left. So correcting.
400.
Rate of descent is too high.
300.
Approaching minimums.
Minimums.
Continue landing. Oh, now we're high.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Nose gear touchdown. Or main gear touchdown. Let's lower the nose gear until it touches down. And after nose gear touchdown, we can engage the thrust reversers. Manual braking. Reverse as normal, vacating the runway, nose gear light to dim. Let's retract the flaps and the spoilers. Landing lights can be switched off, flight director can be switched off. Start the APU and set the probe heaters off. And let's taxi to the apron. Strobe lights off. Alright, so the ignition, that can be switched off as well. And for taxiing, it's set to be flaps 15. And let's see the TCAS, that can be set to standby. The radar is off. And the auto brake system can also switch. Okay, so after landing checklist, pitot heat and ignition, that is off, both. Ice protection is off, exterior lights are as required. Flaps 15, radar is off, TCAS standby, spoilers retracted and the auto brake system is off. That's the after landing checklist completed. Let's just retract the flaps. The APU is running. APU bleed air is on. APU is switched to the buses.
Approaching 29.
I wonder, by the way, if the flaps, they should be in 15 until you reach the parking spot, or whether it's okay to raise them in this stage already. If you are watching this video and you happen to know, please let me know in the comment section what the correct procedure is and why the flaps have to be at 15 after landing. I don't really understand that. So any explanation would be very welcome. So here we go, let's taxi to a nice stand. And this is the Gaya Simulations Vienna scenery. I'll park it somewhere at the other end of the apron so that we can get a good look at what's all included in this beautiful scenery. As you can see, the fire station with beautiful 3D modeled fire engines, crash tenders. The iconic tower in Vienna, beautifully done. I think this terminal is relatively new. I can't recall that it was there when I landed here 10 years ago, but that can also be my poor memory. But it does look nice. As you can see, the layout of the airport, well, it's a perfect replica. I really like the work that Gaya Simulations did. And they announced, they recently released this one and Kos. And they have announced 3 further airports, including Berlin Tegel. And if they can do that one to the same standard as this one, then it will be a no-brainer for me, and I will buy that one as well, because the scenery, it's just, oh, it looks amazing. Lots of details everywhere. They really nailed this one. That's EasyJet coming in. I think they did a pretty good job on the terminal buildings. And also there's a lot of use of PBR in the tarmac, in the taxiways, the runways. So different periods in the day with the lights changing. That's very, very, very nicely done. I think this will be our spot. It's going to be quite a turn to make, Charlie 36, but we'll just go for it. So let's switch off the taxi lights, start our turn. It's a busy day here in Vienna. And here we are, taxiing in. I'm not really sure whether I've programmed SAM already for this airport. It is supported, but haven't flown in here too many times. So just a little bit further. And here we are. So parking brakes set. Let's take a look at the landing from the outside. Oh. Flights, toggle replay modes. Here we are. Now this industrial area between the city of Vienna and the airport at Schwechat is also modeled. I forgot all about it, but when I installed the scenery and I took my first flight here and I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, we went past that by the train when we traveled from the airport to the city, so that was a nice touch. But as you can see, the scenery just looks awesome. Let's just speed it up a little bit, just want to see the touchdown. Because I'm not really sure, I thought that we had a little bump in there, that we made 2 landings, but I wasn't entirely sure. It's sometimes hard to predict because the nose can be quite high above the ground after you flared. Here we go. Oh, perfect. That was nice. And then first you have to lower the nose, and you are not allowed to use the thrust reverses until after nose gear touchdown with this airplane. But that looked rather smooth. So here we go. I think we're down here. Yeah, that's a very smooth touchdown. Just under 200 feet per minute. In the touchdown zone, slightly to the right of the center line. Could have been a bit more on centerline, but I'm definitely happy with this landing. And vacated. Well, I'm pleased with that landing, so let's just switch from the replay mode back to the sim again. We are parked. The parking brakes, they are set. The APU is on the buses, so let's close the engines. And then we can switch off the beacon, the anti-collision light. Floodlights can be switched off as well. And let's see for ground handling. Let's use Surfair. And go to the control widgets. Drive up. And let's see if we go to the menu. We would like to have a GPU. The cargo doors can be opened. Let's see if the GPU, there it is. So GPU can be switched to the buses. And that means that we can shut down the APU. And the engine pumps. So let's run the parking checks. Flaps and slats were up, lights out, seatbelt signs off. Fuel levers and beacon light are off. Parking brake is set. Hydraulic and boost pumps, they can be switched off. Now let's see if we can connect a gate. Charlie 36. So the AutoGate system works with the SAM plugin. Well, sort of. It's now in the airplane. That's not what it's meant to do, but let's open the door so the passengers can be on their way. So anyway, this was the flight with the RotateSim MD-80 from FlyTampa Copenhagen to Gaya Sim's Vienna airport. Two very lovely sceneries. I hope you liked the video. If you have any tips, tricks, comments, questions whatsoever, please leave them in the comment section below. As usual, please do so in a respectful manner. I'm not a real pilot, I'm not a professional pilot, so I still have a lot to learn. If you saw me make mistakes or can explain to me what I should do with the flaps after landing, do they remain in the 15 position until you are at the gate, or can you retract them earlier? From the checklist, I think it's 15 until you are parked and then at the gate retract them, but I wouldn't know why that is. So if someone could explain that to me, feel free to leave a comment. It would be very, very much appreciated by me. Anyway, stay healthy, stay safe. I hope to see you all again another day on another video. Until that time, Bye bye.